The voicemail my mom left that night is the only reason I'm alive. And she never even meant for me to hear it. I found it by accident. It was buried between spam calls and appointment reminders, recorded at 1:17 a.m. on a random Tuesday. A night I barely remember because I had turned my phone off after a fight with her and told myself I just needed silence. At the time, I thought she was being controlling. Now I know she was terrified. But to understand why that voicemail mattered so much, you need to know what my life looked like back then. I was 26, newly moved to a different city, working a job that sounded impressive when I described it to relatives, but felt completely hollow once the office lights shut off. On paper, everything was fine. Good salary, decent apartment, friends I could text if I wanted to go out. But inside, I felt like I was quietly falling apart. The loneliness was the worst part. Not dramatic loneliness, the kind where you sit in the dark crying every night, but the slow, creeping kind that makes you feel like you could disappear for weeks and no one would immediately notice. Around that time, I had just come out of a long relationship that ended so calmly it almost felt administrative. No screaming, no betrayal, just a conversation where we both admitted it wasn't working anymore. Those are sometimes the hardest endings, because there's no one to blame. Work started slipping too. Small mistakes at first, then bigger ones. My manager called me into a meeting and asked if everything was okay. I lied and said yes. I started sleeping badly, eating worse, and convincing myself I was just in a temporary slump. Then came the night everything almost ended. It was raining, the heavy kind that blurs streetlights and makes the world feel smaller. I had stayed late at work pretending to finish tasks that could have waited, mostly because I didn't want to go home to the quiet. On the drive back, my phone buzzed 3 times. Mom, I let it ring. She had this habit of calling when she had a feeling. And lately that feeling translated into questions I didn't have the energy to answer. Did you eat? Are you sleeping enough? You sound tired. Are you happy? Especially that last one. So I ignored the calls, turned my phone to silent, and dropped it into the center console. When I finally pulled into my apartment garage, the rain had turned into a full storm. Water echoed through the concrete structure, and for a moment I just sat there with the engine off, listening. That's when the thought came. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet and steady. What if I just stopped trying? I wish I could tell you it shocked me, but it didn't. It felt strangely logical, like my brain was presenting an option instead of a crisis. I didn't go upstairs right away. Instead, I drove back out. No destination, just movement. The roads were almost empty, and eventually I found myself heading toward the old bridge on the edge of the city, the one that overlooked the river. I had been there once before with friends. People went for the view. That night, there was no view, just darkness and rain. I parked, stepped out, and leaned against the cold railing. Water rushed below, loud enough to drown out everything else. It's strange what your brain does in moments like that. Mine didn't replay my life like a movie. It didn't show me childhood memories or big milestones. Mostly, it just told me how tired I was. Tired of pretending. Tired of carrying everything alone. Tired of waking up to another day that felt exactly the same. I don't know how long I stood there. Maybe 10 minutes, maybe 30. At some point, I remembered my phone. Not because I wanted to talk to anyone, but because I figured I should turn it off completely. When the screen lit up, I saw the notification. One new voicemail. It almost made me roll my eyes. But something, maybe habit, maybe guilt, made me press play. At first, all I heard was breathing. Then my mom's voice. Soft, shaky. Hey, I know you're probably asleep. I didn't want to call again and wake you. There was a long pause. I just had this feeling tonight. I can't explain it. I remember sighing, looking out at the water. Then her voice cracked. You don't have to call me back. I just need you to hear this whenever you wake up. Another pause, longer this time. And then she said something I will carry for the rest of my life. If you're hurting, you don't have to do it alone. I know you think you have to be strong all the time, but you've never had to earn our love. My throat tightened. Rain soaked through my jacket, but I didn't move. I would rather sit with you in your worst pain, she continued, than live in a world where you thought you had to disappear to make things easier. By then, my hands were shaking. She sniffled, clearly trying not to cry. You are not a burden. You never have been. Not when you were a loud toddler. Not when you slammed doors as a teenager. Not now. A small, broken laugh. You don't have to impress us. You already belong. I slid down until I was sitting on the wet pavement, phone pressed to my ear like it was the only solid thing left. Then she whispered, please stay. However hard it is, just stay. We can figure the rest out together." The message ended. For a few seconds, all I could hear was the storm. Something inside me cracked open. Not in a dramatic way, just enough for the weight I'd been carrying to finally shift. Because until that moment, I genuinely believed my pain was something I needed to hide, that asking for help would disappoint the people who loved me. And yet, there she was, loving me directly through a voicemail she never even knew I'd hear in time. I called her back. It was almost 2 a.m., but she answered on the first ring. "Hello." Her voice was alert, like she hadn't slept at all. I tried to speak and couldn't. The only sound that came out was a sob. "Mama," I managed. She didn't ask questions, didn't panic. She just said, very calmly, "Where are you?" I told her. "Stay right there," she said. "I'm coming." They lived almost 40 minutes away. She made it in 25. When her car pulled up, she ran toward me without even closing the door properly and wrapped her arms around me like she was afraid I might vanish. Neither of us spoke for a long time. We just stood there in the rain. Eventually, she pulled back, held my face in her hands, and said, "You don't have to survive life by yourself. You never did." That night didn't magically fix everything. I started therapy a few weeks later, told my manager the truth, took time off, learned slowly how to let people show up for me instead of pushing them away. Healing wasn't quick, and it wasn't linear, but I stayed. And here's the part that still amazes me. When I asked my mom about the voicemail months later, she looked confused. "What voicemail?" She barely remembered leaving it. Said she just woke up with a heavy feeling, walked into the kitchen, and called without thinking. To her, it was a small moment of worry. To me, it was the line between being here and not. So now, whenever someone tells me not to send the text, not to make the call, not to bother someone with how much you care, I think about that voicemail recorded at 1:17 a.m. Because sometimes the message you almost don't send is the one that keeps someone in this world.